ecologies, Indic faith and their message. Ladies and gentlemen, in the paucity of time, let me very quickly welcome in our panelists. Please join me with a thunderous applause as I welcome Dr. David Frawley, Ms. Hema Hari, Mr. Dushyant Sridhar, Mr. Hindol Sen Gupta, and this session shall be moderated by Mr. D.K. Hari.
Namaste to all. So we had a scintillating performance from Manipur. After this, let's get down to the first panel discussion of the morning. And it's a very nice subject that's been given to us here of sacred ecologies, Indic faiths, and their message. I think the words have been chosen very well by the organizers, Shreyasi and Vikram Sampath. Wonderful topic. So the next 40 minutes, let's dwell on the subject. And we have a very nice panel here. Here first is a great Vedic scholar, Dushyant Sridhar, Puranic scholar. Next to him is my wife, Dr. Hema Hari. And then the author, Hindol Sen Gupta. And in the end, we have Padma Bhushan, Dr. David Frawley. A wonderful panel here. So we'll have an easy structure. Probably for the first 4 or 5 minutes, I'll set the stage of the topic. Then we'll go to the lady among the panelists. And then age-wise we'll go, ending with Dr. David Frawley, who will have the last say. Okay. So going on to the subject, without much ado, let's look at sacred ecology. It's a wonderful point because there's an ecological system here, and it's certainly sacred. And that's what we'd like to analyze through this the next 30 minutes. And it says Indic faith and their message. Obviously, the big message, and the word Indic, which we all agree to. But the thing is the faith, the word. Because when we talk about Indic thought, we have been using over the last decade or more the word faith. Because the faith itself means it may be right or may be wrong, but we use the word faith because we have faith in it. Fundamentally, it comes from that. Whereas the Indic thought has got a slightly different take, and through this forum and Earth and the Indic scholars, I think we have to expand this word, this terminology, and look beyond the term faith alone. Because as I said, the word faith can mean whether it's right or wrong, whether it's true or wrong, you accept the faith and then live as per that faith. Whereas the Indic thought is not actually in that way, right or wrong. It seeks and analyzes and accepts based on nature. So we have to use this platform, this forum, and this medium to look for a phrase beyond the word faiths. I think this is a good starting point for that. Okay? And when you say this, the Indic thoughts, it covers a range of religions, starting from say, Shadmadam to Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, and a whole host of other religions. But how did this come about actually, what you call all these religions? When you look at it, it's probably about 600, 700 years back when Isami, he came this side. He was a Turkish person. When he looked at the Indian religions, he called it Hinduan and Hindian. He used the word, 2 words from the word Hind, meaning that which is in this part of Hind and those religions. So one was the people living in Hind who could be Islamic or Hindu or any of the faiths, and the other was just Hinduan, who are only Hindus, non-Islamic but Hindus. So probably that word developed from there on. But when the British came here, they wanted to have one religion for India, and then they created this term Hinduism, which came out of that, and then they used the judiciary and the legislative to cement this religion beautifully. So the Hinduism is not a religion created by Hindus per se. It's a religion created by the British administrators, judiciary, and the legislative as a single religion, as a composite religion. That's what has happened, which is very unique in the world. Nowhere else we have had somebody else creating a religion for ourselves, whereas in this case. But what did they look for when they created this religion? There are certain parameters they look for when they set up this religion. One was obviously all of these religious faiths had a puja mark on the forehead, the way our friend Dushyant Sridhar has very clearly sports it so proudly even today. So that was the thing. And the other thing was the shika, the tuft. And then the Yajnopavitam, He's also got Shika, then the Yajnopavitam, and many other factors like that. But all these were visible factors. What was the not so visible factors? If you look at it, the one linking factor of all the Indic religions is the concept of Om. In each way, all of them had a Om. Be it Buddhism, Jainism, or all the 6 Shadmadam, every of them had allegiance to Omkar, Om, in different ways. And beyond that, if you look at it, there's another very strong connecting factor that we have discussed in this book, Brand Bharat, as well as in our book Creation. I'll just deal with it for a minute. See, you look at the Indic religions or faiths, as we say it here, one thing is for them all, the Brahman, the divinity, the creator is within the creation. That's a fundamental differentiation factor. Whereas in the other religions, what you call semantic order, the creator sits outside the creation. So he sits outside the creation, making the creation happen. Whereas in all the Indic religions, the creator is within the creation, in a way. So the creator is also created in the process of creation, in a way. Okay? So what does that bring out? So you have the concept of Brahma, Brah, to expand, to grow, BRH, Brah. So that's why you got Brihan Mumbai, Brihadishwar, big, expanding, growing. What is the contra to it? The opposite to it is what? Abrahma. You are the Brahma, the opposite is Abrahma, from which comes Abraham, Ibrahim, all that. And who is the spouse or consort of Brahma? Saraswati. Who is the spouse or consort of Abraham, Ibrahim? Sarah. So look at that, so much similarity. So there's one thought, and the reflection of the thought is the other thought. So the Indic religions has a wonderful umbrella from which we need to build on and express not just as faiths, but create our own space. In this, I want to take a very disturbing point before I hand over to the next panelist. When the British colonists came here, do you know what they call Hindu religion? All of us? They call us Gentoo, G-E-N-T-O-O, Gentoo. I'm sure most of you would have come across this term Gentoo. Do you know where this term Gentoo comes from? Have any of you thought about it? The word comes from the word, Indic word Jantu. And the word Jantu means a creepy, crawly insect. ये तो एक जंतु है, it's an insect. So we were called as nomenclature, treated as insects, creepy, crawly insects by the colonizers. Here's a religion, a Brahmic religion, which is be the source, and they are the mirror, but they call us Jantu. They have the audacity to call us Jantu, from which we were given better and better terms as Hindu. So the term Hindu is actually, in that way, compared to a better term to being called a Jantu, Gentoo, or an insect. So from that, we have climbed back over the centuries to claim our rightful space, and now this ecology that we have to claim, the ecosystem that we have to claim as Indic faith, is a primary task of these panelists and all of us here who would like to look at the Indic thought, which is the Brahma thought, as against the Brahma thought. This is the thought. So I'd like to start with the lady here. Having set the tone, she can take forward from the Brahma thought. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Hari. Don't be carried away by his gallantry with these ladies first. Huh? Okay. He actually used the word Shanmadam when he said, when Isami grouped us, all non-Islam, that is all the 6 religions that existed then, the Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, and all other flavors. The 6, fundamentally, even before we go there, if you look at even the Abrahamic religion, all religions in this world fundamentally arise from their perception of creation. That is where religion itself seems to start. Everywhere you see, it's a difference. Today, when we look at differences in religions, they're all stemming from their view of creation. And in Indic thought, especially with the 6 Shanmadam, when they say, there were 6 distinct ways in which people were, perceiving religion, and they were broadly called by Adi Shankara, they were classified, because when he looked at people and saw how they were, conducting their lives and what were their perceptions of creation. He could classify them as Vaishnavism, Shaivism, Ganapatyam, then Sauram, Kaumaram and Shaktam. Vaishnavism, we all know, is about Vishnu. And what these, when we were trying to understand creation as per the Vedic thought and the Purana and all the other scriptures, we found that these were ways in which people were glorifying or appreciating certain aspects of creation. Nobody can ever say that this is all there is to creation. It only means that people see this aspect. So in Vaishnavism, they saw that there was this permeating sense of law and principle that pervades everywhere in the universe, and that was what they considered important. And in Shaivism, you found that they saw the auspiciousness in the entire universe. Shiva means auspiciousness. It is that potential. When you say auspiciousness, what does it mean? It means that there is that potential to become, manifest. And that is why you find the Panchabhuta, matter, everything connected with Shiva. In Ganapatyam, you find that it is to do with the mind and the intellect. And that is why you have Ganapatyam and numbers, and you have Brahmanaspati and so on, all connected with this aspect of creation, the consciousness which is there. Then you have Kaumaram, which is to do with Kartikeya. It is all about the action. That is, the universe is continuously in action. So you celebrate that aspect. And then you celebrate Surya. Without the radiance and light and the sharpness to discern things, that is the aspect that they were celebrating with Sauram. And finally, Shaktam, which denotes the energy also that pervades the universe. And this is where you find the notion of Sri and grace and everything coming in. And people were celebrating and looking at nature like this. So, some people really know the difference between dharma and religion. In Hindi, it has become very common to use the word dharma for religion. And that is where, now whole of India has almost started using dharma. And actually, religion comes from your intellect, your idea, your perception. And the word we had was matha. So matha meant religion. And in the matha, you saw Shiva, you saw Vishnu, but what is the philosophy with which you approached this particular beauty in the religion? That was your pantha, your way to approach. And who gave you that way? Your guru. So every group of people had identified some guide, a guru, who taught you how to approach this, how to conduct your life to approach this, the rituals that therefore you have to follow according to the aspect that you held dear, and that formed your sampradaya. So, if you will, the closest we can say that there is a faith is the faith I will have in my guru, that he will show me the correct way to approach this universe. So that is where you can come closest to faith, a religion, in that sense of a sampradaya. But then if you look at it again, oh my God, this is just only creating diversity, but we are all about unity. Then you look at it that there is a parallel parallel structure in Indian thought, if you will, which is the dharma, Sanatana dharma, which is the way of life. So irrespective of whatever mat or pant or sampradaya you belong to, you had to follow the Sanatana dharma, where you looked at a way of living. You took your life, you broke it down into 4 parts, 4 stages of brahmacharyam, of grihastashram, of vanaprastham, of sannyasam, and all of that, and the kind of different duties. So actually, if you look at all the varnashrama, they all come only in your grihastashram phase, where you are committed to perform for the society. And then the 4 purushartha that you hold, your dharma, artha, kama, moksha. But then again, you find that, oh my God, this is again creating diversity. So then you look at what holds you together is the culture, which is the kalachar. And the kalachar comes where you look at all these different religion, the desachar, which are the localized practices, and you accept them for what they are. And you respect them for what they are. So you're united in the ability to accept things as they are and allow each of them to be diverse, celebrate that diversity is the Kalachar, which is the unity. So this is fundamentally what all the religions have been. They all help you connect back with the cosmos in their own way, and that is what they should all be celebrated for. And that is the message I find in looking at the overall spectrum of religions and the Sanatana Dharma that exists in India today. Thank you.
Thank you, Hema. Very nice, very well expounded. Now I request Dr. Dushyant Sridhar to take the mic.
प्राप्यस्य ब्रह्मणोरूपं प्राप्तुश्च प्रत्यगात्मनः प्राप्त्युपाय फलं प्राप्ति तथा प्राप्तिविरोधि च वदन्ति सकला वेदाः सेतिहासपुराणकाः. This is one of the celebrated verses that speaks about 5 aspects that every philosophy intertwined with theology should incorporate. 1, the essential characteristics of Paramatma. 2nd is the Jivatma, the path taken by the Jivatma to attain Paramatma, the fruit that the Jivatma receives upon reaching the Paramatma, and what are the impediments that the Jivatma incurs in the path or progress to reach Paramatma. So these are the 5 aspects that any philosophy incorporates. And I am very, very blessed, equally delighted to be a part of this Earth Festival amidst an audience and a very, very esteemed set of panelists, and something very contextualist, something that I read yesterday, most of you must have read, whether we were in a hurry to know if we have struck gold. And contextually, I'm flanked by 2 people. One is Hari and the other is Hema. In Amarakosha, Hema means gold. So I'm here. Now when we deal with the ecosystem of the Indic faiths, 2 words that our Siddhantavadis recommend. One is the philosophy, which is Siddhantam. Itham idam Siddhantam. That which can never see a modification next is Siddhantam, philosophy. 2nd is theology. Philosophy generally seeks the contemplating process of a person from the within. And theology seeks something which is external. Let's see, for example, there's a philosophy called Advaitam. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Daivaikanaparaha. This is Advaitam, which is non-dualism. Visishtadvaitam, qualified non-dualism. Visishtasya Advaitam, qualified non-dualism. Then there is a diametrically opposite one, which is Dvaitam, which says it is only 2, dualism. This is Siddhantam. On the other side, we have the theology, which is Vaishnavism, Shaivism, and Shaktism. Now the theology and the philosophy can marry any time. For example, Advaitam can marry Shaivism. Abhinavagupta of Kashmir was a great propounder of it. Advaitam can marry Vaishnavism in the Vyavaharika Desha. Adi Shankara of Kaladi was a propounder of it. Visishtadvaitam can marry Vaishnavism. Ramanujacharya of the 10th and the 11th century was an expounder of it. Visishtadvaita can marry Shaivism. Sri Kantha was an expounder of it. So we have all possible combinations. If you raise NCR, which is 3C2, you will get all these combinations. But something more interesting with the philosophy and theology that I've mentioned is the ecosystem of Indic faiths. Buddhism says everything which is diametrically opposite to what Sanatana Dharma tells. Buddhism says there is no concept of Atma. Anatmavade Bauddha. Buddhism says when there is no concept of Atma, there is no process of reaching the Paramatma, because who is going to reach who is the follow-up question. Third, in the theological sense, Buddhism opposes everything what Sanatana Dharma says. Suppose Sanatana Dharma tells you have to have a shikha, Buddhism says you have to tonsure your head. So everything which is philosophically diametrically opposite to what Sanatana Dharma tells. Same is the case with Jainism. You've got Saptabhangi, Asticha, Nasticha, Asticha, Nasticha, Asticha Avaktavyam, Nasticha Avaktavyam, Asticha, Nasticha Avaktavyam cha. These are the 7-step process of Jainism, which is again diametrically opposite, because it doesn't say that there is someone who grants moksha. When Jainism and Buddhism have been so diametrically opposite to Hinduism, today we say we are all one ecosystem. How? Because when Buddhism came up and said these are the drawbacks of Hinduism, interestingly the philosophers who came after that process tried correcting those flaws and came up with an amended version of Hinduism. With that amended version, we started incorporating Buddha as one of the avatarams. That is why Jayadeva mentions in the 9th verse of Ashtapadi 10 names of Vishnu Sahasranamam, like Ratnanabaha, Sulochanaha says this mentions Buddha. Same is the case with Arihanta, who's Mahavira. So the ecosystem of Indic faiths has basically lied in telling that we may be against each other, but we will understand each other's drawbacks and get together. Probably if this ecosystem is shared with the religions of the West, which are the Occidental religions, probably the world will become a better place to live. Thank you.
Very well expressed, Dr. Dushyant Sridhar. And he also brought in his Bits Pilani formula. So he's very well expressed. Congratulations. Now let's go to Hindol Sengupta.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here among so many people who clearly have a vision for India. I'm once again delighted to be with Dr. David Frawley, Vamdeva Shastriji, from whom I have learned so much and continue to learn every day. Thank you. It's a great honor, sir. I wanted to just talk a little bit about the word ecology, because I think it's very, very pertinent. There are two things that are particularly pertinent today. Many of my fellow panelists, and no doubt Vamdevaji will talk more about it, but in the way that we understand our lives today, I think Hinduism is relevant, and I'm using the word Hinduism in the manner that it's used by everybody. Now, some may say that's not the correct word, but that's the word most understood by people. Hinduism's primary goal, or primary outreach, should I say today, must or ought to be based on a concept which is related to the word ecology, because Hinduism truly is a faith that understands that everything that we coexist or cohabit in is fundamentally related to what happens inside us. You are not, or you cannot be different or dissected from your ecosystem. That in Hinduism is not a possibility. You are an integral whole. You're a part of the ecosystem that you exist in. And therefore, in a world of Greta Thunberg, in a world where in Delhi every winter we cannot breathe, and my home now has multiple air purifiers, as does everybody else's home in Delhi. The idea that there is something sacred in your ecosystem which is worth preserving, which directly reflects your innermost being, is a very powerful idea. Environmentalism is not something that is outside us. The ecology that we see outside us rests in us too. And I think that is a fundamental point that we are not doing a good job in explaining to many people, including the Hindus themselves. And many Hindus themselves don't understand this. Fundamentally, environmentalism, we live in a world of environmental crisis, and environmentalism is a bedrock of Hinduism. After all, it is a faith that sees the sacred everywhere. There is no, Swami Vivekananda famously used to say that the answer to the question, where is God, is essentially God is. Because there is no such thing as not God. Everything that exists is divine. And this divinity, as it permeates into our ecology, permeates into everything that we see around us, well, if you treat it as divine, then of course you will take care of it. And that has a greater sort of, impact on something that I've always been interested in. Well, India's nationhood itself, where does it come from? And is India a nation after all? Well, it comes from this idea of having a sacred geography. Because our nationhood, or India's nationhood, is built upon circle after circle of sacred sites, places, trees, rivers, shrines, you mention it, all of that which is sacred is built into in a topographical manner, in a cartographical manner, in a map-making sense into our very existence. And that then defines who we are, defines what India is. I will take 30 seconds more because we only have 5 minutes for the session to end. And I really want to take less time and give Dr. Frawley more time. So this idea that environmentalism and our nationhood are intertwined is actually a fundamental pillar of our national consciousness. It is seen with Prime Minister Modi's foreign policy attributes, including in his leadership in the Solar Alliance, at the Paris Agreement. So all the things, what I'm trying to say in this panel is, all the things we are discussing are not esoteric things. They're not things that people only discuss, among themselves, 5 people in a shrine. They are alive within us in our daily debates every day. And then I want to pass on to Dr. Frawley.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. First, I want to thank Art for this wonderful festival, conference, and event. A few points I would like to make. First, this ecosystem is an ecosystem of knowledge, vichara. It is not an ecosystem of dogma, and it allows many different points of view. In my discussion with the various Buddhist teachers, Dalai Lama says Hindus and Buddhists are twin brothers. And also, Lama Sempton says the same thing, that the ultimate pramana, the ultimate insight, is deep meditation or samadhi beyond words. For that, we share the same principles, ahimsa, brahmacharya, all these different things, all the dharmic way of life. But we have different philosophies, minds are different, and we have to give the full scope of inquiry, openness, understanding from different points of view in order to arrive at the ultimate truth. Now, ecosystem, Vedas go back to Bhumi Sukta, India goes back to Bharat Mata. It is all about the earth, it is all about the conscious universe in which we live. In Vedas, we have Purusha Vedam Sarvam. The entire universe is reflected in the human being. Human being is reflected in the entire universe. There is this greater overall ecosystem of existence and consciousness. And ultimate truth behind Veda, Upanishad, is Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Everything is Brahman. Everything. And by that, it means that our own self, our own reality is Brahman. There is no God apart. There is no creator apart. There is that one inner reality in all beings. We can understand this very simply like the ocean. All the manifest worlds are waves on the ocean, but the deeper reality is the ocean itself. We are all that same ocean. We are all waves upon the sea. But even more than that, we are the wave that holds the entire ocean. We are the Ananda Lahari, the wave of bliss that carries everything. So that means this ecosystem holds all of art, all of beauty, all of expression, all ways of knowledge. And our tradition is not one of belief or faith, but sadhana. And the sadhana is to become one with and realize the entire universe within us, the Dahara Kasha, the Guha, the cave within the heart. Entire universe is there within you. Atman is Brahman. Even in the Buddhist system, the entire universe is consciousness. We recognize in all the systems there is one consciousness pervading all things. You can give it different names and different forms. And the ultimate ecosystem is the entire universe that we are. And our own body and minds are but expression of this transcendent reality. And all the dharmic systems share karma and rebirth. We have had our births through all beings, in all worlds, in all lokas, and we are connected to all. And in the ultimate ecosystem, it is not human beings versus nature. The ultimate ecosystem is that we are all of this, A human being is all of this, and all nature is part of us, and we also must recognize everything as sacred. That is the foundation not only of the Sanatana Dharma, it is also the foundation of all the other indigenous traditions throughout the world. We also work with the Native Americans, and they also share that type of view. And in that view, there is no need for conquest, there is no need for conversion, there is no need for one God against other gods. All the gods are within us, all the goddesses are within us, and yet we are but the smallest particle. Everything in the universe is filled with divinity, transcendence, infinite and eternal. At each moment, there is the eternal. At each point in space, there is the infinite. All of that is within us. All of that is here. And the beauty and the importance of India or Bharat is that it sustains these traditions in all their different forms. And it's essential that these traditions are preserved by events like this, by what's happening in all the ashrams, temples, the dances, all of that, because this is the cosmic ecosystem. India is the gateway to the universe as a whole. It is our cosmic doorway, and it's very wonderful to see that we finally have in India an awakening to the value of this cosmic civilization that is Bharat. Shri Guru Pyo Namaha.
Thank you, so beautifully said. And you brought in this concept of sacred very well. Thank you. And obviously, we use in Indian language, we use the word divya. Divya, from which comes divine, diva, divine, everything. So the root word is divya. So each one of us is divya. Every moment is divya. Every anu is divya. Every vriksha is divya. Every jantu is also divya in every sense. So I think that is the concept, very unique to India, and that ecosystem, its spaces, everything is divya. On this note, we'd like to end this wonderful panel discussion. Thank you so much to everybody. Namaste.